Good evening. Karen Lee, Administrative Consultant for the Springfield Community Preservation Committee. Today is Tuesday, May 19th, 2020, and for the record, the time now is 6:05. The recording scribe for this meeting is Suzanne Jovel, and our CPC logo was designed by Nancy Upshurt of TSM Design. In accordance with the Governor's March 12th public meeting modification, and for those without a video connection, the notice on the screen reads, if I could have that slide. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to the Governor's executive order concerning the open meeting laws, the City of Springfield is providing public notice that this public meeting will be conducted using remote collaboration technology. This remote public meeting is hosted by Focus Springfield Community TV. We thank Steve, Carey, and his crew for facilitating the Zoom meeting and making it accessible on the following platforms. On Channel 17 on Springfield's Comcast network, Focus Springfield Community TV website, focusspringfield.com/watch/government, on Focus Springfield Facebook page, and also on the Springfield Community Preservation Committee Facebook page. The committee will take public comments at the end of this meeting for those who submitted a request in advance for the Zoom link. The next meeting of the CPC is June 2nd, and if you would like to make a public comment at that meeting, send a request to cpc@springfieldcityhall.com by 4 p.m. on June 1st. Written public comments or testimony about any of the projects heard tonight or from the previous session on May 5th, or the upcoming meeting on June 2nd, written public comments are accepted until June 5th by email to cpc@springfieldcityhall.com or mail your comment to City Hall, Springfield Preservation Committee, 36 Court Street, room 412, Springfield, Mass. 01103. All comments become part of the public record. We do our best to keep the teleconference link secure, so anyone with the Zoom link is placed into the waiting room until your identity is confirmed. Once you are invited into the meeting, your mic is placed on mute until called upon to comment. At that time, please state your name and residential address for the record. Tonight's meeting is the second of third sessions to hear presentations from individuals or groups who have submitted an application for a Community Preservation Act grant. As background, the Community Preservation Act was created upon adoption of the voters in November 2016. In Springfield, the CPA ballot question passed in all 8 wards, all 17 neighborhoods, and 63 out of the 64 precincts. This is Springfield's 3rd year of grant funding. With the strong local support, the CPC wanted to encourage applications from individuals and civic groups for community-related projects and hosted 2 outreach workshops earlier in the year. It is a social media presence and a space on the city website. Photos of funded projects can be found on the CPC Facebook page, and there are plans to increase outreach in 2020 to identify communities that can benefit from CPA as a resource. The committee welcomes your input, and if you have suggestions to increase community outreach, or if you'd like to be placed on our email list, please send an email to me, klee@springfieldcityhall.com. You can also leave a message on the Springfield Community Preservation Committee Facebook page. The CPA Fund was created by a 1.5 surcharge on real estate and statewide Community Preservation Act Trust Fund, distributed to municipalities and funded by the Registry of Deeds. The Community Preservation Committee is tasked with overseeing CPA funds, and in this cycle, there is approximately $1.7 million of funding available. The current 24 applicants, as well as projects funded in prior years, can be viewed on the city website, springfield-ma.gov, on the Community Preservation Committee page. After the CPC has met with all applicants, the committee will deliberate and vote on projects to recommend to the City Council. It is the City Council which votes to fund a project. CPA funds are awarded to individuals or groups seeking funding for recreational and open space, historic resources, or community housing. For example, CPA eligibility activities, see the Department of Revenue allowable spending chart on CPA eligible. I'm sorry about that. Apologize. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry about that. Let me start that sentence again. CPA funds are awarded to individuals or groups seeking funding for recreational and open space, historic resources, or community housing. For examples of CPA eligible activities, see the Department of Revenue allowable spending chart on the CPC website page at springfield-ma.gov. For the record, that was Willie Thomas, one of our members calling in. Finally, 9 members serve on the committee and are appointed to serve a 3-year term. 3 members are neighborhood representatives and 1 member each from the Historical Commission, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Park Commission, Housing Authority, and the Springfield Preservation Trust, Inc. For consideration tonight, the committee will hear from applicants applying for funding of 6 projects. Marshall Roy Field Park Spray Fund, the Marshall Roy Field Park Walking Path, Thompson Triangle Park Fountain, Long Pond Feasibility Study. Can we get that slide, please? Rock Rimmon Boathouse Adaptive Reuse Study, and the Zoo and Forest Park and Education Center renovation. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to our chair, Robert McCarroll, to introduce the rest of the committee. Thank you.
He needs to be unmuted.
Oh, I thought check with him. Yeah. Am I unmuted? Yes.
Sorry about that, Bob. We all set?
All right. So thank you, Karen. As Karen said, CPA was adopted here in Springfield in 2016. It, however, was created in 2000 by the Commonwealth, and communities could adopt it if their voters so chose. The state requires that every community preservation committee across the Commonwealth, 5 municipal departments represented, and they allow communities to have up to 4 others. So our neighborhood representatives and conservation trust representative, excuse me, are appointees that have been built into the ordinance when the city council created the ordinance. So tonight we have with us Gloria DiFilippo, who represents the planning board, Juanita Martinez, who represents the Conservation Commission, Terry Rodriguez, the Park Commission, Ralph Slate, a neighborhood representative, Willie Thomas, our Housing Authority representative, is logged in. I am representing the Springfield Preservation Trust, and not yet here, maybe not attending, Lamar Cook, a neighborhood representative, David Finn, the Historical Commission representative, and Terry Mitchell, another neighborhood representative. We have received 24 applications. They are asking for nearly $4 million, and as Karen said, we have $1.7 million. So not everyone will get recommended for funding. It is important to realize that we are only a vetting and recommending body. Our recommendations go to the city council. It is the city council that appropriates money. In our recommendations, we can decide that we're not recommending a project, in which case it doesn't get to the city council. We can recommend them at full funding. We can recommend them at partial funding. And then, of course, it's the city council's purview whether they choose to fund it as recommended, or fund it with less than what is recommended. Our 24 projects this year span the city. We have them in Brightwood, Memorial Square, East Springfield, Indian Orchard, 16 Acres, Forest Park, 6 Corners, McKnight, Metro Center. And you know, our timetable is we will meet with the last group of applicants in early June. I'm hoping that we will start deliberating in middle June and perhaps have recommendations for City Council in July or August. When City Council takes up the matter and what their timetable is for approval is out of our control. Usually it's several months after we send the applications to them. And then of course the law department has to create the contracts between the city and whoever are the awarded grantees. So with that being said, we're going to start with the presentations. You have 5 minutes, and since David's not here, Gloria, would you be willing to time? Yeah, and so Gloria needs to be unmuted.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So Gloria will give everyone a 4-minute warning, and then at 5 minutes, she'll say time is up. At that point, committee members will be able to ask questions, and the applicants will be able to answer them. I will call on the committee members in the same order that I introduced them to see if they have questions. So with that being said, the first presentation tonight is Marshall Roy Field splash pad and spray structure. So John and Marie need to be unmuted.
Okay, hi. I'm Marie Koski. I live at 931 St. James Avenue in Springfield. I am a member of the board of the Springfield Neighborhood Council, and I'm very happy to be here tonight in Kathy's place. As you can see by the slide, we have Marshall Roy Park here. Marshall Roy Field is city-owned and is located behind Pottinger School amid a residential section of East Springfield. It is across the street from Mallory Village housing and is utilized by baseball, softball, soccer, and lacrosse teams from across the city. And it is on a major city bus line. As a result, this is a highly utilized field. During the warmer summer months, the splash pad is a welcome as well as critical attraction, providing children a chance to cool down, play with their friends, and oftentimes picnic with their families. The next slide shows the current splash pad is well past its reasonable life expectancy, as you can see in this photo. The pad has large cracks throughout, which can be dangerous to children running through the water. We realize this is an expensive project, but feel that the residents of East Springfield, as well as the families of all the teams that utilize the field, deserve to have access to summer recreation that is safe and family-oriented. This project meets all of the guidelines of the Community Preservation Act. It is supported by the Park Department, the Neighborhood Council, and most importantly, the residents of East Springfield. It is a project that will be used and enjoyed over decades. We thank you for your time.
Okay. So we'll start with Gloria. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I was just wondering, have they considered renovating the current splash pad? Is that possible?
Evidently not. We've asked about it. It's in really bad shape. You can see those cracks are just the tip of the iceberg. It has to be taken up and redone.
Okay, thank you, Marie.
I'd like to say, I think it's about probably 20 years old. So there's probably some technology that's far better.
Okay, I'm done, Bob.
All right. Juanita, any questions? Juanita, you have to unmute yourself.
All right. I said it's a great project, and sadly, it's going to have to take 2 years from what I see here before kids can actually use it, but it's a good project. The only question is, I was looking at this project and the walking path. Why are the benches cheaper? Why are these benches cheaper than the others when they're the same ones?
That's a good question. Kathy did the figuring, so she may have, I don't know the answer to that.
It's okay. And it could be because there's more of them. There's 6 here and only 2 there, or 3 there, but.
Right.
maybe for that. And also, is it, you could have one sign, CPA sign for the two projects rather than one sign for each one. Could that work, Bob?
It could work, assuming we recommend funding both, yes?
Okay, if we did, if we recommended funding both, we could do one sign. Right?
Any more questions, Juanita?
No, I'm good.
Terry Rodriguez? Unmute yourself, Terry.
I don't think their spray park is that old. I mean, it's definitely damaged, but I didn't think it was that old.
It's up there. It's been quite a while.
Laura, you don't know when it was put in, right?
I don't know the exact date, but I can look that up. The biggest thing there is the surfacing obviously needs to be addressed, and that's, you know, over wear and tear and use of that. And like Marie and John said in their presentation, there are updates to splash pad technologies and how those work. And that would be something that we would look at during the course of this project as well.
All right, thank you. That answered my question.
Thank you. All right. Ralph, any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Is there any opportunity here for either grant funding for this project or city funding for this project to supplement CPA funding?
I don't believe so at this time. Sorry to cut you off, John and Marie, but
It's
I
okay.
don't believe there's any funding for this at the moment.
Ralph, another, was that your only question?
Yes.
Okay. Willie, do you have any questions, Willie? He seems to, he's not showing up on the screen anymore. Karen, have we lost Willie?
I'm not sure. Lamar is trying to, is Lamar here?
No.
He's trying, he said that he's trying to get in from the waiting room, but I don't see him listed. And I don't see Willie, so we may have lost him as well.
If I can jump in for a moment, it seems like Lamar may be trying to use the link from a couple weeks ago. I saw him trying to join a different meeting. We may want to email him
Okay.
the link for the meeting that we're in right now.
Very good. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions. One is, so the current splash pad still is functional?
Partially.
Yeah.
Some of the water some places the water isn't coming up like it should, doesn't shut off like it should. It is made of asphalt, which is breaking apart with grass growing up. But yeah, there's some function, but it's not a good function.
And is this, either the current one or the proposed one, is this something that gets turned on, let's say at 4th of July and gets turned off at Labor Day and is operational then 24/7 that someone can come by, or does it have specific hours of operation?
The water is turned on, I believe, the beginning of June, middle of June. There is an on and off in the summer and summer. Yep.
I don't mean to cut you off, but the parks are open from dusk to dawn, all of them, from dusk to dawn. So that would be when that would work.
Yeah. Laura has a comment. Yeah, Laura?
Sorry, typically all the splash pads are on sometime in June, depending on weather. It's always weather dependent. If we're having a heat wave, things like that. But typically splash pads run from 10 to 6, and they are turned on by the activation bollard at each spray park, so that you're only using the water when folks are there to use it. It wouldn't be on all day. But there are hours of operation for them, and usually 10 to 6.
Okay.
And they actually only stay on a certain length of time. If you press that ball, it stays on for a certain length of time and then shuts off, and the kids or someone has to go back and press it again.
Yeah, there's like a phased approach to the
Right.
jets.
All right. Thank you. We've been joined by Neighborhood Representative Lamar Cook. Hi, Lamar. Do you have
Hi,
any-
Bob. Thanks for letting me in.
I'm sorry you didn't hear the earlier presentation, but I don't
No,
know.
I actually heard everything. I just couldn't get in as I watched via Facebook.
Okay, well, great. So do you have any questions regarding the spray pad proposal?
So, so my question is: there an alternative spray pad in the East Springfield neighborhood?
No,
Okay, so this will be the only spray pad.
yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. That's my only question.
So I guess we don't have Willie. So I guess if any other committee members have another question, raise your hand because I can see everyone. I see no hands going up, so we have no more questions. So we go on now to the proposal for the Marshall Roy walking path.
Yes, thank you. My name is John Koski. I live at 931 St. James Avenue. I represent the East Springfield Neighborhood Council and Kathy Brown. And I'm here to represent the grant application for a walking loop at Marshall Roy Field. Marshall Roy Park, with its 4 baseball diamonds, 2 soccer fields, playground, splash pad, and field area for other family recreation, attracts visitors from all areas of Springfield. Additionally, this park serves the recreational needs of students attending Pottinger K-5 school, which abuts the park. This is a highly utilized park. The addition of the proposed walking loop leverages available space around the perimeter of the park without reducing any of the existing use and activities. It will provide a safe place to walk and exercise free of traffic. While we expect the walking loop to be used by all ages, we believe this feature will offer something at the park that will be especially enjoyed by the older population. Benches placed along the walking loop will provide places to rest, read a book, and enjoy all the park has to offer. This project meets all the guidelines of the Community Preservation Act. It is supported by the Parks Department, the Neighborhood Council, most importantly by the residents of East Springfield. This is a project that will be used and enjoyed by all ages. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. So we'll start. Gloria, do you have any questions?
Usually when we have a proposal come before us, we might ask, can this proposal be done in phases? Could we fund this part and then later on perhaps fund another part? But in this case, maybe the only thing you could potentially fund later on are the benches.
Right.
And
right.
the concrete slab. But you also have another proposal you're requesting. So my question, I think is a little unfair, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you had to choose between the two, which one is more important?
The one that we could get money for.
That's a good answer, and that I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
That's it, Bob.
Great, thank you. So next, Juanita, any questions?
Unmute.
I had the same question as Gloria, but I do have one minor little thing. This is a walking, biking path?
It's a walking, we call it actually a walking loop. It's 6 feet wide. It's a 6 foot wide asphalt walking loop. It's not being promoted as a bicycle path.
Because I was going to ask if there was some sort of division for biking and for walking, but it's mostly, I mean, it is only a half a mile, so probably the only bikers will be little kids, but okay, thank you. And again, it would be the same thing with the signage, but anyway. No more questions, Bob.
Terry Rodriguez?
No questions.
All right, Ralph?
Yes, I'd like to know, I'm a little confused about the material. It says that it's an asphalt walking path, but then it says it's a gravel base. Is it asphalt or is it gravel?
You put a gravel base in and then it's asphalt, covered with asphalt.
I gotcha. Okay, thank you.
That was it, Ralph? Okay. Yeah, Lamar, any questions?
Yes, my question was about the the asphalt as well. I noticed that the Duggan Park included a rubber surface track, and we were told that was a more efficient for an older population. So why not rubber versus the asphalt?
You know, we didn't investigate a rubberized surface, and there's no particular reason for not going with a rubberized surface. We elected to, you know, we pursued materials that we were familiar with, and so no particular reason for not pursuing for not looking at or not specifying a rubberized surface.
Lamar,
Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. And I guess I'm going to just ask Laura regarding Lamar's question. Is a rubberized track something that's feasible? Is it more expensive, less expensive? Is it not practical for such a small 6-foot wide space?
Those are all great questions. And also this will touch a little bit on Gloria's question about phasing. One of the things I know, it may seem quite simple to just go ahead and put in a 6-foot path around the park, but really that does take some engineering and some design to it. So a phase could be to do the master plan that would show the path and have the construction documents prepared for that and then in that master planning, looking at all of the different surfacing options that are out there. There's so many options now. There's asphalt, there's stone dust, there's flexi paved surfacing like we use at Sergeant Sullivan Park. The rubberized track surface is a little bit different. Of a surface, it's definitely more expensive than asphalt, so you'd want to look at the type of use that you're promoting. But one of the things that the CPA could help support is maybe that first phase of the design portion of this to figure out really what's going to work, and then the implementation after.
Okay. So any other committee members have a follow-up question? Raise your hand if you do, and then I'll ask Lamar if he has anything. So I see no hands from committee members. Lamar, do you have anything?
I just asked my question, Bob.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess the only thing that I would have, and it's more for Laura and John and Marie, it's an issue of, you know, the budget doesn't include a cost figure for design and, you know, a pulled out cost for a study that looks at the options, et cetera, et cetera. So if that's something that the neighborhood and the park department want to sort of pursue, you need to get us that figure no later than, I would say, you know, the June 5 when public comments close. If you decide, you say, we'd rather have just the study this year. Okay? Sound like
Okay. Yes.
perfectly acceptable if you say, no, we want to go ahead with the proposal as submitted. That's fine as well. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John and Marie.
And we can leave now and go to our neighborhood council meeting?
If you want to, or you're welcome to stay.
Thank you very much. It's a busy night.
All right. Take care.
Right.
So the next item on the agenda is the Thompson Triangle Fountain Restoration, which Walter Kroll is going to be presenting.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. My name is Walter Kroll. I'm president of the McKnight Neighborhood Council. We're sponsoring this proposal. So the CPA category, it's actually two categories. It's both open space and historic preservation. The fountain was actually built when the McKnight brothers built the McKnight neighborhood back in 1883. It was part of the development, part of the houses. They felt having this type of triangle park in the middle of the build out would create a community. And it's funny, 139 years later, it still is. It's the center of the neighborhood. It's a center for activities, whether it's people walking their dogs. We have our annual block party there. It's certainly well used. So it was originally a kind of a basic fountain in 1986. The current fountain was created with the parks restoration. They were careful to make sure that the historic aspects of this met Historic Commission guidelines, the neighborhood guidelines, and it really does look like it's been there since the beginning of the neighborhood. But over time, it's starting to take its wear. So there are issues with some of the cherubs on the bowls. Some of the fountain bowls are leaking. It has a severe problem with drainage. It has a problem with leaks. And while it only runs during the summer, everyone in the neighborhood kind of takes turns with maintenance, whether it's climbing in and unclogging the drains, calling DPW for help with different things where things are leaking or when they have issues. So our request is to have and luckily the original builder of this is still available. So our ask is to have the cherubs replaced, some of the fountain bowls that are leaking replaced, some of the broken pipes replaced so that the fountain can be what it was meant to be, which is beautiful, a beautiful centerpiece. If you haven't seen it, it's on our website. It really is the center of the neighborhood. So 3 components, basically a rebuild of the concrete work and the cherubs around the outside. They'll need to have a crane to have it removed, fixed, and brought back. And then the local piping vendor. We've partnered with and supported obviously by the McKnight Neighborhood Council and its residents, the Preservation Trust, and certainly with the Parks Commission. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Walter. So we'll start with Gloria. Any questions?
I was confused, actually this is for you, Bob, on the restoration of the fountain. That can't go under historical, correct?
Well, this is something that we would ultimately, discuss during deliberations. But since you asked the question, I think that this is the fountain. The park is indeed a historic resource, been around for ages. There has been a fountain in that park since the park was built. The
Correct.
Fountain was only put in the mid-'80s. But clearly, as an open space focal piece, it's certainly eligible under recreation because it's got the benches around it and people go and sit and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, that's it. I'm done.
All right, Juanita?
Unmute.
So this is the first time we've ever been asked to fund wings, which is interesting. Anyway, I don't have any questions, except, and this is probably, do you know who designed the original fountain?
Yeah, it's Robinson Iron. They're out of Alabama.
No, not the one that was designed.
Oh, yeah, in '83. I don't know, but if I remember right in the research, it was the McKnight brothers that actually designed the fountain.
Okay.
They built the fountain and donated the whole park to the city.
So Bob, does this fountain have any historic, but because of who designed it, is there any information? I mean, information or do we have to ask any other questions because of that?
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to know who designed the fountain that was there in the 1800s, the one that's on the photograph on
it just seems to be just some water coming out in the middle. I don't think it's much of a fountain, but yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yep.
That's it, Juanita?
Yep, that's it.
Terry Rodriguez?
Question.
No question? Okay. Ralph?
Yes. Is the fountain currently operating, or is it not operable?
Right now it's off. They haven't turned it on, so I'm not sure if DPW has not turned it on because of the poor drainage and the broken valves, or if they just haven't turned it on yet. It did work last season, everything except for the top, but worked obviously very poorly. So as of today, it's not on. So I haven't followed up with DPW to see if Parks rather, if they're going to have it on or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Lamar, any questions?
Yes. Has there been any attempts for any outside fundraising sources for this project?
We haven't found anything that could address the fountain itself. We had tried working with the Parks Department to see if things like this could get funded, and they said there wasn't funding for this. So that's why we're approaching CPA.
Great. Thanks, Walter.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions? Raise your hand. Lamar, any follow-up question?
No follow-ups, Bob.
Well, and I don't have any questions. So thank you, Walter. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you all.
The next project is the Long Pond Feasibility Study by the Indian Orchard Neighborhood Council. Zeta, take it away.
Unmute. Yeah.
I unmuted. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. And I want to thank Laura Walsh in advance for helping me out here. It's been a crazy pandemic season for me. I'm not doing very well with this, so have patience. I meant to reach out to Laura earlier and ask her to join us, but you're here, so I appreciate that. So our grant application is to hopefully one day open up all the ponds in Indian Orchard, but this time we're focusing on Long Pond. Indian Orchard is a neighborhood that doesn't have any swimming spaces for the residents here. We have a couple of ponds that the neighbors have been accessing illegally, and we want to make it legal for them to be able to go out and enjoy nature and be part of the community. So Long Pond has been in existence. All of our ponds, of course, have been in existence for a very long time, and we I'm not sure how long ago it's been that the ponds have been closed and have not been open to our residents. In our proposal, we submitted pictures of the ponds and how they used to be used, and we received letters of support from neighbors. We have the Sheriff's Department, Brett Richards, who is they clean up the ponds and the fishing holes around the area, all over the area, not just in Indian Orchard. We have the Parks Department, of course, Wellspring Harvest, and we have a citywide map. So what we're doing is we're trying to figure out basically, what it would cost to open up the ponds, especially Long Pond right now. We're thinking of starting with just one section of it, having kind of like a beach area, and basically trying to just get some recreational areas for the residents in Indian Orchard. Laura, if you want. She's helping me.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
So the Parks Department is always looking at ways that we can increase water-based recreation. That's not only a goal of our department and the city recreational needs, but also the state is looking for ways for us to do that. What is really going to be helpful for the Indian Orchard neighborhood in this endeavor is to put together, through the help with the CPA, is to have a master plan for the different ponds and things like that, starting with Long Pond. I think it's a great idea to look at different ways we can do more boating, fishing, potentially maybe some things like that, but it really does need to have some environmental studies. It needs to have master plan development in that first phase. The first phase, as you guys know, we say this to you quite often, I feel, these first phases really help us identify future funding that can help leverage funds on a state level, Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, a PARC grant. But really the best thing I think for this project would be to put the funds towards the use of a master plan development and feasibility study for water-based recreation.
Okay. So Gloria, do you have any questions?
Yes. Given this study, do we then know for sure that the Parks Department will fund a lifeguard there? Or is there going to be a lifeguard at the beach?
I think that I can't answer that right in this moment. I think part of the study is to look at where does it make most sense for swimming to occur. Long Pond may not be the best spot for swimming due to its, the condition of the pond and what's needed. So I think that to say right away that there's going to be swimming, I don't think we can answer that yet. I think that comes out in development.
Okay, now I'm a little confused. Is this study just for Long Pond or for the other ponds? Is it a master of all the ponds that does the study?
That's what we're hoping to do, is to have a master of all the ponds, because in our grant application, I submitted pictures of all the ponds that are in Indian Orchard, or I mentioned all the ponds in Indian Orchard. And in the Facebook page, that's you're from Indian Orchard. A lot of the stories included a lot of the other ponds like Jams Beach, Lake Lorraine, Joy Beach, Long Pond was one of them. So all the stories that were told included all the ponds. This one is the one that Indian Orchard Citizens Council voted on looking at first. But like Laura said, I think we want to expand it to include all of the water areas in Indian Orchard, and see which one would be best to start with, right? And so we're looking at basically all of them, but we're starting to look within Long Pond for right now.
Still confused. I apologize.
And I'm sorry, the way I wrote the grant, it maybe shouldn't have said Long Pond. It should have said, waterways in Indian Orchard. But,
all right.
Go ahead.
Okay, now, so the $50,000 for the design development is really the study. Is that correct?
Yes.
50,000, I thought it was 100,000.
We did request 100,000.
Yes, but it says 50,000 is clearing trees, dredging part of the pond. So I guess, I don't know whether the proposal needs to be tweaked or not. That's your decision.
Yeah.
Because $50,000 is allotted for clearing trees and all.
So
I have a question. Well, hang on a second. Do I have the right proposal here? Because I don't have anything that mentions $50,000 for clearing trees. I have a proposal in my hand here, but there's no budget and there's no information about $50,000.
Well, the last page.
Yeah, there is the last page is the budget.
Oh, yeah. Although it says page 3.
It does say page 3.
Nope.
It says page 3.
You don't have it, Ralph?
Well, give me a second.
I have it
It
at the
says
end of my package.
budget attached, it says, and
So let me
no,
read.
I don't.
So for those that may not have it, it says Indian Orchard Citizens Council proposed budget for Long Pond. And it has CPA grant request of $50,000 for design development. And it says CPA grant request of $50,000 clearing trees, dredge part of pond, create beach area. And then there's some cleanup that's being funded privately by donations from the community businesses, Rick's Auto Body, and Eastman Chemical. So if you don't have that page, that's the extent of it. 50,000 for study, 50,000 for dredging and tree clearing, about 4,000 being raised privately to do some cleanup on a monthly basis.
So you're right, Miss Gloria. I think we might have to tweak it because I don't think that this amount of money is going to create a beach area. So the $50,000 is not going to do it. So we might have to tweak the budget a little bit. And I have never really, well, the studies that I've been involved in with Bay State and other entities have, they use $300,000 to do a study. I always am amazed on how much it costs to do something like this. So, we might have to tweak it, and Laura, of course, can help me more with this. I wrote this, hoping that we could have a waterway open very soon, but of course, that's not feasible.
You have to make that decision. I mean,
Yep.
I think that the opening a waterway is a really good thing, especially in Indian Orchard,
Mhm.
you know, so
Absolutely.
I guess you need to decide, let's just take this money that if we're funded, we just do it for Long Pond, and then later on down the line, we'll do it, as opposed to doing one big master plan and then
Right.
hoping to be funded another year down the road.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, like Laura said, if Long Pond is going to be the best one to do it at. You know what I
Right.
mean? The first time we did go over there, we looked at it. It looked like, that's something that could be done. We don't know what the water's like. But we had water tested in one of the other lakes, and it came out fine. There's no chemicals or anything like that in it. It's okay to swim and to fish. But we don't know about Long Pond, so that's going to be part of what we're going to do. So if we need to tweak it, I might have to talk to Laura. I might have to go back to our council and see what they want to do, how to move forward, so that we can figure out, because what we want basically is just to have some open swimming spaces in Indian Orchard.
Sure. Okay, Bob.
I've lost track. Juanita, did you have a
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So the $50,000, you don't have a person online that, right now that's going to be doing the feasibility study. Where did the $50,000 come from?
I'm sorry?
So you don't have a company that's doing the feasibility study. So where did the how did you come up with 50,000?
That's an estimate based on, other proposals that I've worked with. And I feel like this might be a smaller one. So that's an estimate. The same thing with the clearing of the trees. We got, what's the guy's name? Charlie Arment. He came out and he talked to us and he said it would probably be around that amount. So that's where those figures came from.
If I could speak quickly, Juanita, does the $50,000 for the master plan study, that was a recommendation by the park department based on other projects that we've undertaken with similar goals. And obviously any project or feasibility study would have to go out for an official RFP to hire a designer to do the work. But that's right about now that what we're seeing, $50,000 is a general number for studies of this kind, for master plan development and looking at what types of recreation is possible, what work might needed, and things like that.
Okay. But then if, for example, you have an estimate and then you find out we fund it and then you find out that it's not enough, will the park department pick up the rest of it?
Well,
you're this for $100,000 and $50,000 of that is for this design, and then you find somebody to do it, but it's more than $50,000. Will then the park department take over the rest of the money? Will they pay for the rest of it?
We don't know, but I know in Indian Orchard we have a lot of businesses and a lot of I'll call them our dedicated businesses that really help us out a lot of the time. So Eastfield Mall. So that could be if we needed more money for that, like for opening up the ponds and even some of the lifeguards where you mentioned earlier, someone mentioned earlier, we thought, well, if we needed money to do those kind of things, we could reach out to our businesses and get some money from them. And I don't know if the Parks Department is in a position to commit to any money, but for the most part, in Indian Orchard, we're kind of like isolated to a certain degree because we're a long way from downtown Springfield, and a lot of times we do have to rely on our businesses in the area to do basically what we're doing.
I understand that. So Eastfield Mall and the other Rick's Auto Body, they haven't committed to any amount of money.
No, not yet.
Okay. One other question. A letter of support and from the Conservation Commission is very important because this is a water body. Mm-hmm. So that has to be included and they have to be a part of it.
Right. And I have been in conversations with, oh God, what's his name? Kevin. And I included his email that he sent me. He said that he's definitely in support of us opening, the waterways in Indian Orchard. He does want to have the study done, and he wants to know exactly, what the master plan is going to be. And at that time, once we have that, he said that the Conservation Commission could probably have some money, to put into it for that.
And one other question for Laura. Do you have a person that's going to be doing the feasibility study? Do you know?
Well, for procurement reasons and for procurement law, we can't just pick anyone. We would have to we'd have to solicit quotes either from our on-call engineers or put out a request for proposals for any design firm to bid.
And so the $50,000 is in that range?
Yes, that is an appropriate range for a study of this type.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Terry Rodriguez, any questions?
Data, about how many ponds are there in Indian Orchard that are closed?
1, 2, 3, 4. Right now, 1, 2, 3, 5 of them, including Long Pond.
Okay. So then the only one that's open in that area is Five Mile Pond.
Well, and that's not Indian Orchard.
Yeah.
That's Boston Road.
Yeah.
That's more, that's Ward 8, but it's
Pine Point.
It's Pine Point.
Yeah, Pine Point. All right, that was my question.
Thank you.
All right, Ralph, any questions?
No, all the questions I had have been asked.
Okay, I see Willie Thomas is here. Willie, you have any questions?
Thank you.
Ralph, any questions?
Oh, and if I could,
all the questions I had have been asked.
Okay.
if I could just say one more thing. One thing that I didn't mention is that Long Pond.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Is that
Yeah.
Willie? Yes.
Peter, Willie Thomas is talking now. So Willie.
He's muted himself.
Okay, so Lamar, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so my question is on the proposal, the budget. So the 4,000 is only an estimate. That's not a committed amount from any business.
That's
Is that
correct. And that's
Okay.
a lot less than right now. We've had for the last 4 years an annual Indian Orchard Blooms campaign where we put up flower baskets all over Indian Orchard. Those businesses and a lot of other businesses have in the past donated up to $25,000 just for those things. So that's just an example of the possibility that we can get money from our businesses in Indian Orchard.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
Thank you. And I did want to say, I'm sorry, one more thing about the Long Pond. If you look it up, it's one of Massachusetts' great ponds in Massachusetts, and that's Long Pond. The only one I think in Springfield or in this area.
So I guess my question would be, is it seems like, because I share Gloria's confusion, that we had a proposal that we thought was just for Long Pond, a study for Long Pond, some work at Long Pond, and now we're hearing that the study is really for the ponds up in Indian Orchard, which I think may make sense, but my concern is it needs to be a study that's or will the study be focused on water-based recreation there, as opposed to, I wouldn't want to see them come back and say, oh, well, we can put a baseball diamond here, and we can put a tennis court there, and we can put a walking trail here. The issue is, will the study be primarily focused on water-based recreation as opposed to simply park and recreation? So I guess that's probably a Laura Walsh question.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, I think if that is the scope of this study, then that's what we would focus on. The only thing I would add to that is if you're going to have an area that has parking or needs guardrail, things like that, the master plan would come into that. But I don't see the type of recreation shifting in that you would go, oh, hey, a baseball field would look great here. If that's not what we're looking for in Indian Orchard, and we know that people want water-based recreation and how important that is for an urban environment, that's what we would focus on. But there would most likely be development when you construct these areas, that they would have a park-like feel to them with parking, guardrail, signage, things like that. That's what the master plan would look at, is what is needed. But I would not anticipate a change in recreation.
No.
The other follow-up question I would have is, if this is going to be a study that looks at the ponds and which one do you start with, et cetera, that are in Indian Orchard, I mean, there's the closed Lake Lorraine State Beach. And it's not a municipal park, but has there been any discussion about the state giving that to the city if the city wants it?
I'm not aware of that conversation happening recently, but that is something we could definitely investigate, either as like concurrently with this or as its own individual thing.
Okay. Any other questions from?
Yeah. Now I'm confused. So this $50,000 is for a feasibility study for the 5 lakes in Indian Orchard, or just Long Lake?
I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do all the 5 lakes and ponds.
With the 50,000.
Is that correct, Laura?
Well, I think we can, if it's going to be helpful for the CPA, I can reach out to some of our current design firms and see if they can give us more of a proposal before your June 5th deadline there. That would really show you what $50,000 could do for a study of this magnitude. So if that's helpful, we can get that information for you.
Okay. Just to find out, because to me, I'm still not clear whether this is for all the lakes in Indian Orchard or just Long Lake.
Okay, Gloria.
I mean, Long Pond, excuse me.
Put your hand up, Gloria.
And just to make it a little bit more confusing, do the lakes in Indian Orchard, what about Loon Pond off of Page Boulevard?
I think that's included in here.
Okay.
It is included in our, yeah, it's Lake Lorraine, Long Pond, which is a Massachusetts Great Lake, Loon Pond, Dimmick Pond, and Mona Lake.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Lamar, any questions?
No additional questions. Thank you.
Willie seems to have disappeared again. All right. So, well, thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next proposal, which is the Rock Rimmon Boathouse Adaptive Reuse Study by the Pioneer Valley Riverfront Club. So I guess it's Ben Quick is going to be starting off. Jablonski will be joining him.
Thanks, Bob. Yes, Steve Jablonski is on the call as well. He's been instrumental in helping us put this together. So my name is Ben Quick. I'm the executive director of the Pioneer Valley Riverfront Club, and I live at 18 Elwood Drive in Forest Park. So I prepared a statement. I tried to keep our application succinct and helpful. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. So as we all know, Springfield has got a lot of historical traditions to be proud of, from art museums to the automobile industry and firearms manufacturing. And amazingly, while all those factories and institutions and people were doing their thing, they were dumping waste into the Connecticut River. Despite that, a vibrant recreational river culture was flourishing back in the early 20th century. Today, not much remains from those times, except for one witness, which is the Rock Rimmon Boathouse in Springfield's North End, which you can see over my right shoulder here, right? So as a nonprofit organization, which we are, we have brought thousands of visitors to the Springfield riverfront over the past 13 years at this site. And we were super encouraged to see that the CPC's priorities included enhancing riverfront recreation. And since we occupy the only remaining boathouse on the Connecticut River in Springfield, where there once were 5, we were equally encouraged to hear that the CPA funds historic resource projects. So we figured we were kind of at the intersection of 2 important initiatives, and that CPA funds would be well spent for the betterment of Springfield on improvements to the boathouse in the north end of Springfield. Now, visitors who come to the boathouse, they see a lot of things. They see happy faces of kids from the north end. They see rowers, they see dragon boaters, they see boats being stored inside a building, which is kind of cool. They see exercise equipment, locker rooms, and every square inch possible used for something functional. If they come on a summer Sunday afternoon, they see hundreds of people dancing to salsa music outside. If they come in late June, they see dragon boats racing. And if they come on afternoons during a normal school year, they see kids in cruise shells learning to row or preparing for competition. It's quite a sight. On weekend mornings, they'll see kayakers enjoying the river. And if they go inside the boathouse, they will see a mostly empty space on the second floor, which is underutilized due to what we call structural unknowns. So it's this and other unknowns that our study is hoping to address. What visitors to the boathouse do not see includes a kitchen. There is no kitchen. There is no community meeting space. There are no bathrooms accessible to park visitors from the outside. There are no balconies with outdoor views of the river, which if you look in my report on pages 14 through 16, you see the historical photographs of boathouses, and they all have one thing in common, which is balconies, outdoor viewing. Visitors to the boathouse do not see sufficient parking. And I'd like to draw your attention to page 13 of our proposal, which shows some aerial photography of some of the larger events that get hosted at North Riverfront Park that just spill into the north end. It's just we overwhelm the area. They also don't see room for growth in the building. And ultimately, they don't really see a building that is commensurate in, let's say, aesthetic appeal to the surrounding beautiful park. I use this background picture because the park is simply gorgeous. It is a true gem of Springfield, and it's getting enjoyed more and more over the years. So this application of ours to the committee is to fund the first step, to come up with a comprehensive plan for what we're calling adaptive reuse of the existing structure, and to figure out how and if—
1 minute.
You got it. How and if a complementary boat storage shed and a parking plan can enhance the entire riverfront. Our approach is going to consider many aspects of what a great riverfront resource should look like, while capturing as much of the historic original structure as possible. And New England's got plenty of examples for us to look at of riverfront boathouses that have mastered this combination of history and functionality. The subsequent phase, once our design and our master plan is done, will be to return to the committee so we can start raising funds to do the project. And we do hope to be able to come back to the committee for that once that project is done. But for now, we really need to know what we are up against and how to move forward.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, so we'll start with questions. Gloria?
No questions.
Okay, Juanita?
So if this feasibility study finds that they come up with a design and you're ready to go, it's going to be a very costly project, I'm sure. Is there ready money available in other places other than the CPA? This is I'm sure a high budget project.
Yes, multi-million-dollar project for sure.
Right. So do you have these monies?
So that's a great question, Juanita. And my friends at the Parks Department have been wonderful in providing us some guidance saying, Ben, there's opportunities for land, there's opportunities for building, there's opportunities for this. But the real issue is that we are tenants. The city owns the building. And it is and we've just signed a 20-year license agreement with the city, for which we're very grateful. So now we are staged to raise the funds to invest in something that'll be here for a long time. So we are excited to do that, but without the 20-year license agreement in place, we were in no position to do any fundraising. Now that we have it in place, that was kind of the last piece of the puzzle that had to happen. We're we've got a really great organization of very dedicated followers and a lot of funders who say, Ben, I'm not going to give you 5 cents to put a coat of paint on anything until I know you're going to be there for the next couple of years. So long answer. I hope I answered your question. We've got opportunities, but first we need to have a picture to show people saying, here's what we're going to fund. And we don't have that yet.
So basically there'll be a feasibility study, but not sure you'll need to be able to do the project. And then what will happen to this study?
we are a very driven bunch.
Uh-huh.
And as I shared with you, everyone who comes to the Boathouse goes in and says, wow, this could be so great. You know, imagine someone walks in your home and says, wow, this could be a really nice house. We've been hearing that every day for 10 years. So we're motivated and dedicated to make sure that something happens.
Thank you. I have one question. Bob, this is a question for you. It's under historic preservation. The building has been altered so much. Is it still considered a historic building?
That was going to be my question. So clearly this project sort of straddles a potential historic category and the potential of a recreation category.
Right.
In order for it to be historic, it has to be a building, structure, vessel, yada, 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 on the State Register of Historic Places, or determined by the local historical commission to be of importance to the community because of history, architecture, archaeology, culture. So the question really for Ben is, have you been to the historical commission to get a determination that the Boathouse is indeed falling into that category because it's not on the state register, which is the easier way to prove that you're historic?
Indeed. You know, I would love to defer to my friend Steve Jablonski, who's got a lot of experience in this type of situation. Steve, would you mind speaking to this question? I think you may have to unmute yourself.
I just wanted to start by saying, some of you know me, but lifelong resident of Springfield, 9 years on the Springfield Historical Commission, done a lot of projects with the park department, Springfield museums, etc. And I'm thrilled by the potential. Specifically to Bob's question, I would say that's one of the main reasons to fund this study would be, in my opinion, the historic background of the boathouse and boat culture in Springfield would qualify it just in that regard. However, to be perfectly honest and frank with you, the condition of the structure as it stands now needs to be analyzed. And I mean, I can't tell you right now, we're going to say what roof or whatever. That's why we listed a structural engineer as well as a site development expert. So I would say it would be our intention to most likely, once we gather the information and find out how much historic material is left and is actually feasible to restore, to go to the historical commission and ask for their support, and or go to the try to have it put on the National Register. But to be honest with you, this is most likely that's why we're calling it an adaptive reuse. It's not, you know, George Washington slept here and it's the same as when he slept here. You know, I think anybody that can see the pictures understands that there's very little historic character left. Whether it can be salvaged and resurrected, I strongly feel that that is the case.
So let me be very clear here. When it comes to CPA, in order for us to fund anything, it either has to be on the state. This is the state law. This is not just us. The state law that governs CPA, it either has to be currently on the State Register of Historic Places, and this is not, or the local historical commission needs to make a determination that the structure, building, vessel, whatever it is of importance to the community because of architecture, history, archaeology, or culture. So if you're asking us to fund you under the category of historic, you need to get that determination now from the historical commission, not down the line. Now, on the other hand, you could decide that this is really a recreation project and that you're studying it from the recreation aspect. But the other thing that I would say is if you look at the state law definition of recreation, it's much more land-based. It talks about playfields and parks and gardens and walking trails, and it specifically says no stadiums, no gymnasiums, or similar structures. So we might have to have the debate as to whether this is a little too building-focused to be a recreation study, and it ain't a historic study because we don't have a building that's been determined to be of historic importance. So you need to sort that out as to, at least with the historical stuff, we cannot fund it unless you come up with a determination. And Steve, just so you know, the commission now has a form like a request within a local historic district that says the commission has found that such and such a property is either on the state register, is a contributing part of a district that's on the state register, is not on the state register, but is important, or none of the above.
So, Bob, excellent points. And we debated
If I could just jump in there, Ben and I
go ahead.
haven't had a chance to discuss this, but I don't think it's inconceivable that if Ben and I work together, we could submit an application to the Springfield Historical Commission to approve the project on the basis of its historical merit in the past.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, you know, I understand, Bob, we are in a gray area, but we also are unique. There's no comparable property in Springfield, I think, to say, yeah, you've got this building that's been around for 120 years. It's still being used in its original function, even though it had 40 years of neglect. We got a nice letter from Jim Boom on the community preservation commit on the conservation. Sorry, Jim is on the. What is Jim on the? I thought he was our historical contact, and we talked to Jim and said, "Is this something that's valid?" And he said, "Yes." He wrote this great letter. We got a letter from the New North Citizens Council. Thank you, Community Preservation Trust. The New North Citizens Council's on board with it. Parks Commission's on board with it. Frankly, if we don't find a way to come up with a plan to present to raise funds for this, the building is going to keep falling apart. And you know, I don't want to sound desperate, but it sounds like Community Preservation Act funds are just would be a great way to start, just to find out what it needs, so we can answer the question: is it historical? It's sort of a catch-22, right, Bob? It's like, are we historical? We need to do a study to find out if we are. Does that make sense?
No, I hate to say it.
No? Okay.
It sounds...
Well, Ben, if I could jump back in, I mean, I would hate to see the project not funded because of this technicality.
Please,
we will present the project to the Historical Commission and request, you know, designation as a historic property. And I would predict that that would succeed.
Okay. So we're back. I forget where we were with questions. Gloria had them. Did Juanita? Did you?
I did. I.
Okay. Terry Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Bob, how many kids you serve?
Say that again, please.
Bob, about how many kids you serve?
Me? How many kids? We got about 250 kids flow through our boathouse every year through various programs, from free community programming to on-water recreation.
How many of those kids from the neighborhood got a scholarship last year?
Wow. Well, we had 13 girls got scholarships to college through rowing programs that, you know, don't exist anywhere else in this area. Yeah, we're very proud of them. And we've got a couple of kids from the North End who are seniors this year. We're excited about their prospects for college. It's been quite a journey.
Thank you. No more questions.
Okay. Ralph, any questions?
Yes, so just to address what we were talking about a minute ago, I think that there is a strong case. I agree with Bob that you would need to go to the Historical Commission. I think there's a very strong case that this is indeed a historic structure. It's one of 5 remaining boathouses, or the only one of 5 boathouses that remains in the city. Even though it has been bastardized by the various additions that were put on it, the place is still there. It's still largely. It is the boathouse. It's not as though the original piece of it is gone. The original boathouse is still under there somewhere. So I do think that is something you should pursue. My question is there any chance though that you do a feasibility study that comes back and says, no, this building can't stay, we need to tear it down? Because in that case, I don't think, I think that probably a condition of this grant money would be making the property into a local historic district, or putting a preservation restriction on it. So, that's sort of your catch-22 is if we give you this money and along comes with a restriction that says you can't tear this building down, well, now your study may come back and say you should tear the building down.
So, Ralph, what was the question?
Well, what happens if that happens? So what if your study comes back and says, no, this building cannot be reused?
Steve, do you want to
Yeah, I would.
talk to that point? Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, I mean, there's no guarantees in life. When I started on the Barney Carriage House at the start of my career 30 years ago, it was literally slated for demolition. Now it's a well-respected, utilized structure. I'm not going to kid you and say that the Barney Carriage House was in bad a shape as this boathouse is. I'm perfectly upfront and frank with you. We went to a structural engineer. We're including him in the study. And by the way, this is a well thought out study. My firm and the GZA are both have long-term consulting contracts with the city. So what Laura's point was making about those, the kind of, not to cast stones, but a slightly vague nature of the other one, this is exactly tailored. And we know that we're going to have a structural engineering report. And the structural engineer that I work with is a specialist on saving buildings. So I guess you could say, Ralph, I mean, I can't guarantee that I'm not going to come back and say it's a total loss, let's get rid of it. But if you make it part of the funding, I think we can, basically people can work with any restrictions are placed on them. And I would say that we would, I mean, I can't guarantee it, but I would say it's highly unlikely that we would.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Steve, just the fact that you're involved with this does make me feel more comfortable, because I know your track record with historic preservation, and that is a positive thing. And I'm glad that you're not coming in here and saying, we want to do a study to see how we can, knock this boathouse down and build a new one. It does seem to be focused on preserving the original structure.
I would like to just add or draw everyone's attention to, because we don't want to have anybody say they didn't understand this, because Ben and I feel we've clearly stated it. But if you look at the diagram on page 16, which is the very last page, Ben and I are in agreement that the way that this is going to move forward and be feasible, because it's an ongoing work in progress in terms of, the boathouse is being used, that very likely what's going to make the whole thing fall into place is the idea that we're considering building a brand new boat shed, which is where these 65-foot long boats and other smaller kayaks, et cetera, will be stored. That's not historic, that's brand new. That's a fraction of the cost. And then with the structural engineer, our intent is to go through the old existing Rock Rimmon boathouse, file the application. I apologize that I didn't foresee this coming, but now that you brought it up, file the application with the Historical Commission to get it listed as a property, and then we will submit plans as how to fix it up. but I believe strongly from my background and knowing the property and seeing the boats that are stored there in person, that if you had to work around them and make handicap accessible and fully modernize a historic structure and still fit all these boats in, you're literally, I guess, you're swimming against the tide. So, but I just want people to understand that that's what we're proposing and that's what we're studying. And also, as Ben has very wisely pointed out, that, and Laura Walsh and Pat Sullivan, to the best of my knowledge, and even the mayor are on board with this, is that it's clear that there isn't enough land to support this use. You just look at that picture of the Dragon Boat Festival, and at that point, all the cars were parked on the Pride gas station land, but that's obviously not a sustainable way to fund something into the future. So a big part of the study is historically respecting, bringing back the rock rim and house. But in order to do that, you have to get parking lot, and you also have to have a place to store the boats.
So to follow up on that, if you are planning, and I know this is all sort of kind of, fluid, but you obviously have a vision for this. Is the vision that, so your vision sounds like you're talking about building another structure to store the boats, which are, I guess, are currently being stored in the existing structure. Is the vision to sort of, and again, I know I'm not trying to hold you to this, I just want to know what your vision is. Is it to maybe bring back some of the original character of that property? Like, so, when you look at the picture of it, there was the addition that was added towards the river, the big square addition that's kind of taking up, a large portion of the front, what you arguably call the front facade of that building. Is the thought potentially that you might remove that because you don't need it anymore since you have the other building, and you could, like you said, open it up to some kind of an outdoor decking type area? I mean, what is sort of the vision here?
Yeah, I mean, these are the conversations my board and Steve and I have had. The vision is that if you remove the burden of storing boats on the boathouse, the potential for that building to be restored to a social space, a community space, a place with bathrooms that are accessible from the outside, it becomes much more functional and accessible and available, and a destination. I mean, there are cities along the Connecticut River that have destination boathouses that book parties and weddings and functions. That is not feasible right now with this building. So yes, Ralph, get the boats out, store them elsewhere where you don't have to heat them, you don't have to cool them, you don't need plumbing, in a low-cost, attractive building, so that the boathouse itself can be something beautiful and functional. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Lamar, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
I guess my question is, besides the activities that you have, is this space accessible to the public? So if I had a kayak and I wanted to come down and launch it from your facility, is that allowable? If I wanted to come down and fish on the shoreline? I mean,
yeah, it's a public park, Bob. As soon as we get through this pandemic type situation, we're going to be open for business. The park's open dawn to dusk with a dock that we purchased, but is accessible to the public. It is a public launch, non-motorized vehicles, boats only. And yeah, we want to see it teeming with, more than the 25 parking spaces it has. And the building with no outdoor accessible bathrooms. It can be so much.
okay. So any follow-up questions from committee members?
Yeah, I have a question. Who owns the property on I'm on map 6, page 16.
Mm-hmm.
And the property with what looks like a pyramid out there, the yellow, who owns that piece of property?
With the white outline or the yellow one?
No, not where the existing parking lot is, but across the road. You see the
green?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the green. There's a...
Juanita, could you put that map, just hold it up?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Up a little higher. There you go.
There you go. Thank you.
All right.
Who owns this piece of property?
Bob Bolduc.
And why do you have it, are you thinking of that for parking?
Yes.
And has the city purchased it?
No.
But it will.
We're in discussions with Bob and the city. We've had a few meetings with the mayor. He loves the idea. He understands, well, everyone understands that,
You're right.
that we have a parking capacity problem.
Right.
And if we can, Bob Bolduc already offered us, anyway, we've started the conversation.
Okay. Right. I mean, it's a great project, but it has some little problems, but can we work?
Yeah, which we need to assemble into one report. Say, here are all the issues. And right now it takes too much vision for people to see what could be there. And I think with Steve's help, we could put a beautiful plan together saying, look, this is what we're talking about. And people will be like, oh, now we get it.
How many cars could that hold?
The potential area, about 200 cars.
Oh.
And our vision is that it's a multi-use area, sort of like a field, which can be parked upon, or you can set up tents on for festivals, outdoor recreation. That would be the next phase. I will say that this project could have been a recreation or an open space application, but we felt that the building needed to be addressed first. So a study that covers all those perspectives is what we're really hoping to fund here. And I think our ask is 2% of the total CPA budget, right? $35,000 out of a $1.7 million. If that helps at all, that's sort of the way we look at it.
So we'll be seeing you for many years.
Yes.
Any other questions from committee members? No? Lamar, anything? Nope. All right.
No, that's it.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the final
Thank you, everyone.
petition, which is the zoo in Forest Park. So you want to start off? Is it Emily? Are you going to be starting off?
I'll start off. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Nathan Bazinet. I'm the board president for the Zoo and Forest Park and Education Center. And I'm joined tonight with Emily Bauer, our curator for the zoo. And I want to thank you all for allowing us to present on behalf of Sarah Tizzo, our executive director, who wasn't able to be here. We're here tonight to ask for your support through funding in the amount of $250,000. 3 years ago, as its governing board, we made sweeping changes to the zoo's mission and our vision, pivoting away from the traditional zoo model to focus on 3 guiding principles: education, conservation, and rehabilitation. Today, more than 90% of the animals that call the zoo their home have been deemed non-releasable. And more than a home for our animal residents, the zoo is an asset that creates jobs, promotes tourism, contributes to the culture for young families looking to settle in Springfield, and provides an invaluable environmental and ecological resource set right in the heart of Forest Park. In fact, it's the only zoo in Massachusetts to be located in the heart of a major city. For 126 years, the zoo has served our community, and we continue to grow our reach. Our attendance numbers jumped from 45,000 unique visitors in 2017 to 75,000 in 2019. Our offsite Zoo on the Go education program reached another 15,000 people in 2019. With this funding and the upgrades we propose, we believe we will be able to increase our membership and attendance by 20%, which results in a greater number of visitors to Springfield's Forest Park and greater potential for out-of-town visitors to spend additional tourism dollars in the city. More than increasing visitors, the projects included in this proposal will bring the zoo facilities into the 21st century, enabling our continued growth, preserving an important community landmark, expanding accessibility, and allowing our dedicated staff to continue their important work in a manner reflective of our shared values. It also provides updated and improved classroom space, enabling the zoo to expand its relationship with local schools, after-school programs, and homeschool groups, all of which seek out zoo resources regularly. After fruitful meetings with Mayor Sarno, Patrick Sullivan, and other city leadership about the current and future state of the zoo, we are encouraged to apply for this funding to strengthen our facilities and help us expand the work that we do 365 days a year. Receipt of this funding will help preserve the city's character by enabling our 126-year-old institution to grow and adapt to meet the needs of new generations of Springfield families. And I'll turn it over to Emily Bauer, our curator, who's going to give a brief overview of the projects we intend to complete, and we're happy to take questions after.
Emily, you have 2 minutes. Unmute.
So. Is
Emily, you have to unmute yourself.
I don't know. Okay, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for your patience. I'm not quite as prepared as I think Sarah might have been, but I will do my best. I was able to help her sort of figure out where we would use that money ultimately, and I can tell you it would make a world of difference for us, not just in our physical space, but also in our daily operations and how we do things. Our goal is one of our primary goals is to upgrade our bathroom situation, bring it into ADA compliance, and also to do some renovation work on our main building, our perimeter fences, our walkways, all things that will benefit the city because it is actually at least land from the city, so long-term benefits the city, and also benefits all of our guests and improves their experience inside. I would also add just quickly that being a part of the zoological community for over 12 years, I've met people across the country that grew up reading If I Ran the Zoo. And so while we have a significant community impact historically, we also have a broader range across the country, nationally, and this really gives a unique opportunity to help preserve something that is so special to so many people. So it's definitely a good niche to fill. And I think that's kind of everything. Do I have time left?
You have a few more seconds.
Oh, okay. Well,
keep going. I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay. Well, yeah, so some of the other things that we're looking at improving, the walkways are a really big one. As we talked about the ADA compliance with the bathrooms, some of our walkways are quite damaged and make it difficult for patrons using wheelchairs or walkers to get through the zoo completely and safely. So we do our best to sort of patch that in a way that is helpful and safe, but it would definitely make a massive difference if we could work on that on an infrastructure level. So I think I got everything else.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start with questions. Gloria, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Juanita, any questions? Juanita, you have to unmute yourself.
On the budget, you're asking for $250,000. The estimated cost for the project is $274,000. Where is the $24,000 coming from? Because I don't see that you have other.
So every year we as an organization and association invest about $12,000 into the facilities. So we don't own the facilities, the city does, all the property, the walkways, the fencing. So we as an association raise funds and use it from our admissions to put at least $12,000 per year into annual upgrades. So we would contribute a similar amount every year to this project.
And the other question on the budget, you have amounts, but you don't have who's going to be doing the work? Who do you have anybody
that I would have to yield to Sarah. So Sarah is the one that put the proposal together. Unfortunately, couldn't be here this evening, so she has all the relevant information. I know that we have a facilities manager who worked, I presume, with several contractors, and we have contractors on our board that help us put these numbers together. So if we could have Sarah maybe reach back with more specifics on that, I'm happy to ask for that information.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, next, Terry Rodriguez, any questions?
No questions.
Ralph?
Yes, I have a question that's maybe more for Bob and Ed to a certain extent. I mean, certainly I know that the zoo is a mission. You have to, obviously, that's a large source of your funding to take care of the animals and all that. How does that fit together with the CPA funding? In other words, although there is a public benefit, I think, to the zoo and it being on city property and being in the park, is there any kind of a problem with there being an admission charge that sort of prevents people from using the improvements without paying, a small fee?
Be happy to look into that.
And I guess my comment would be, if we don't mind giving historic money to the museums, if we were to give recreation money to the zoo.
Yeah.
Except the difference with the museums is that they provide free admission to Springfield residents.
Which we negotiated with them.
Right.
And support through payments of over $1 million a year.
All right. Lamar, any questions?
I have no
I have a
questions at this time.
No questions. Okay. So I don't have any questions. So, Terry, you have a question now?
Yeah, I have a question. There's two individual charges to go to there, right? There's one charge to go into the park and one charge to go into the zoo. Am I correct?
So the city charges an entry fee to the park itself. We see nothing from that. That's a city fee. We charge an entry fee to the facility itself. So yes, there are two separate charges. We are only in control of one of them.
Okay.
There's only a charge to the park if you drive too. It's if you walk in, there's no charge.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right. So I see no other hands going up.
Actually, Bob?
Yes.
Yes, before we continue, can I ask Steve to put up those slides on the public comments in case anyone turned in lately? We can just quickly throw up those slides so people know how to respond. If Steve is there. No?
Well, if nothing else, Karen, you can.
There we go. There it is. Okay, so the committee will take public comments at the end of this meeting. To take that out of the way. The committee will take public comments at the end of this meeting from those who submitted a request in advance for the Zoom link. The next meeting of the CPC is on June 2nd, and if you would like to make a public comment at that meeting, send a request to cpc@springfieldcityhall.com by 4 p.m. on June 1st. Second slide. Written public comments are accepted until June 5th, either by email to cpc@springfieldcityhall.com or mail your comment to City Hall, Community Preservation Committee, 36 Court Street, room 412, Springfield, Mass. 01103, and all comments become part of the public record. Thank you, Focus Springfield. All set, Bob. Thank you.
And Karen, am I correct then in assuming that no one registered with you by the deadline to talk tonight?
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Zoo folks. We appreciate it. And now we will move on to the other part of the meeting.
Perfect.
You're welcome to stay around if you want, but you're also welcome to leave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
So we have the minutes of the May 5th meeting. They were quite lengthy. They were sent out in two parts. If we could have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the May 5th minutes.
All right, thank you, Lamar. Second on that? Juanita seconds. So now it's going to be a roll call vote. So Gloria?
Yes.
Juanita?
Yes.
Gary Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. The other item is a minor fiscal issue. which is the transfer of some past undesignated reserves to the fiscal 20 reserves for community housing, historic resources, and recreational use / open space. So the background on this is, you know, as we begin the budget every year, we are required by the state law to set aside 10% of the total budget for housing, historic, recreation, and open space. At the end of the year, if by some chance you get more money than you thought you were going to get, you need to adjust your reserves for those 3 special accounts. If it's more than what the coalition calls, according to the Department of Revenue, a de minimis amount. And de minimis means it's so small you don't worry about it. However, this year, we budgeted, we thought we were going to get $1 million. I think we thought we were going to get like $1.4 million. And as of the end of April, we've taken in more than $1.7 million. So we're $300,000 above what we thought we would be at the end of June. And some more money will be coming in as people are paying their taxes later than had been allowed. So the coalition has said one of the ways to remedy this problem is if you have money left over in previous years. And if you remember, in our very first year, in our what I call fiscal 18 year, we had 2 projects that were not approved by City Council that left $125,000 into the undesignated reserve account. Last year, we took some of that money out to help augment what we gave to the historic adaptive reuse for Old First Church. But there's still $81,000 and some change in that account. And so what the coalition has suggested is that we simply take that money, which is undesignated, and divide it into the 3 reserves, so that about 27,000 or whatever that is divided, will go into that, and that gets us closer to meeting the 10% requirement. So I hope everyone understood that. It really gets confusing with CPA financing from time to time. Ralph, is that a question?
Well, yeah, so why do we have to do it that way? Why don't we just take at the end, once we get all of our money in for this year, why don't we just say, all right, we got in $350,000 more than we anticipated. We've got to put in 10% of that into the 3 buckets and then just do it that way.
And that's the other option. We can wait until the close of the year, which means sometime in middle July, I think they'll know how much came in as of June 30th, and we can do it that way as well. So if that's the sense of the committee, I don't have any problem. It's not a pressing issue, but we do need to make sure that the 3 reserves are close to 10% of what we actually took in. So Ralph, you want to make a suggestion that we table this?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we table this until we get the final fiscal year 2021 dollar figures.
No, it's fiscal 20.
Fiscal year 2020. Sorry.
Ending June 30th. Okay, so we'll put a second of that motion.
I second it.
All right, so motion to table doesn't need debate. All in favor, we go down the list. Gloria?
Yes.
Juanita?
Unmute.
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Billy? No, that's right, not present. Lamar?
Yes.
All right, and Bob, yes. Okay, so we'll table this until after the close of the fiscal year. So the next items are the discussion of the request that we received from tiny homes to consider an off-cycle application. We asked them to clarify why they needed an off-cycle application Karen forwarded to you their letter. And the other one is we need to make a determination on an incomplete application that one copy of the application reached us on the deadline, but the electronic copy and the other 10 copies in the cover letter did not reach us. So why don't we start off with the off-cycle application? And I guess what I would suggest for the discussion is someone should make a motion that we can then discuss, and then we'll have a vote, and that will resolve whether we indicate to them that we're willing to accept it or we're not open to it. Ralph?
I have a question. Have they submitted an off-cycle application?
Well, no, they've asked whether we would accept one. So
Our policy is we will accept off-cycle applications. We don't have to, well, what is our policy actually? Doesn't it say we may accept off-cycle applications?
So what our policy says, a CPC may, under extraordinary circumstances, vote to accept applications that require consideration outside of the normal funding cycles because of emergency or market opportunities. And it says potential applicants who think that they've got that issue should contact me. And obviously, I'm not making the decision. I'm taking it to the committee. So
sure. So my question is, this is what's very confusing to me, because I don't understand how we can tell somebody that we're not going to consider an off-cycle application until they submit the off-cycle application. Like, in other words, they have to tell us, I'm submitting this, I would like to submit this application for off-cycle funding because X, Y, and Z. And that's when we say yes or no. But we shouldn't be able to preemptively tell them, no, we're not going to accept anything from you. Before even hearing it, we're not going to accept it.
But I thought that's why we asked them for clarification, and that was in the letter that they sent as to why they were requesting an off-cycle application. I don't think we should make people do an application and then bring it in and for us to say it's not.
Oh, okay. Can we clarify what their reasoning was? Because I don't have that handy, unfortunately.
I will read the letter that they sent. So the Western Mass.
I can bring it up on the screen, Bob.
Well, okay, and Lamar, you can see it on the screen, correct?
Yes, I can see everything, yes.
So once it's up, give everyone a minute or two to read it.
All right. Well, you can go ahead and read it, Bob.
So the Western Mass Tiny Home Initiative will build the first affordable housing micro-cottage community on the East Coast. These alternatives to apartment buildings and townhomes are becoming increasingly common across the Midwest and on the West Coast due to the better quality of living that they offer. Our goal is to work with the Community Preservation Committee to apply for a CPA grant enabling Springfield to be the first city in New England to host the development of one of these innovative communities. Our first project will be aimed at low-income veterans, providing first-time homebuyer initiatives to increase owner occupancy in the city of homes. We have identified an available parcel at 2 Ashland Street in downtown Springfield as the site of our first project. A micro-cottage community would enhance the essential character of this neighborhood of beautifully restored urban row houses and apartment buildings. Given the newness of the innovative form of housing, the Western Mass Tiny Homes Initiative is at the forefront of establishing a path to follow to finance their construction, sell them as detached condos, and establish a site plan along with local civic engineers, architects, and the city's planning professionals. We will, of course, utilize Springfield-based resources in the development of this community. The COVID-19 pandemic shutdown has affected the progress of this complex project. While the timing is not right for us to submit a 2020 CPA grant application, we are eager to open a dialogue with the committee to discuss the ongoing work. And I'm reading the wrong letter.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. I was trying to keep up with you and I said, this isn't the same letter.
They have their initial letter, not the clarification.
Right.
I apologize for that.
Okay, so do you want me to go ahead and read it then?
Yes, please, Karen.
Okay. Okay. So this is the response for clarification of why the tiny homes project might require off-cycle funding. Dear Chairman McCarroll, on behalf of the Western Mass Tiny Home Initiative, I want to thank you and the Community Preservation Committee for taking the time to review our recent letter of intent. We appreciate your consideration of our request and the value you place on innovative and creative ideas for the community. The COVID-19 pandemic shutdown has slowed down the progress of our complex project in many ways. Most importantly, to our CPA grant application, we were not ready at deadline to sign a formal purchase and sale agreement for land on Asham Street because of insufficient contact with the local veterans service organizations. It was our hope to have several veterans show intent to purchase several of the homes to help validate the project prior to executing purchase and sale. However, the owner of the land has accepted our offer letter. The offer was for $100,000 and included a lengthy due diligence period and a contingency of receiving grant funding by the fall. Also, the City of Springfield executive offices were unavailable for a period of time, which delayed our ability to gather information from the planning, building, zoning, and legal departments around requirements for buildings the City First micro cottage community. Subsequent to the grant proposal submission deadline, we have been able to meet with the city officials and have made good progress. And of course, we are not alone in having to delay our in-person fundraising initiatives. Thank you for taking the time to read our letter of intent and consider our response to your clarification request. We would like to have a formative conversation in the near future. Please let us know if you are open to speaking with us virtually or in person when and if that is possible. Christy Torres, President and CEO, the Western Mass Tiny Home Initiative. The Western Mass Tiny Home Initiative is a supportive community, Western Mass, that provides safe, quality housing and services for individuals who are homeless, empowering residents to live with dignity, independence, and financial stability. And that's from Christy.
So I guess.
Okay, so Bob, I have a question as well that may provide more information. So you revealed to me that from our last year's grant awards, one of the projects has turned down the CPA funding.
Ralph, I do not think that the issue of where the money comes from is relevant for this discussion. This discussion.
Well, let me explain to you why I think that. Well, let me explain to you why that I think that it is. Because I think that it is not. Well, I think that it is not fair to the applicants who got in their money who got in their applications at the deadline to have another player introduced to this process. I don't think that that's fair. But I think that a potential way out is that there is going to be some excess money that is available that was for housing. And so, at least in my thought, there is enough reason submitted with this application to accept it off cycle, because we did have a pandemic that did shut down many different services and has slowed down housing, and has slowed down a lot of different things. So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking that maybe it's all sort of related.
Ralph, is that a motion? I want a motion that we can discuss.
I would like to make a motion to accept to communicate to the applicant that we will accept their application for an off-cycle proposal, but it will not be funded out of the money that we have already, let's just say, set aside for the 2021 applicants.
You know, it's 20 applications.
2020 applicants.
So there is the motion. Does everyone understand the motion? So is there discussion?
Do you need a second?
Yes, thank you, Gloria. We need a second.
I will second it, but I have a concern with the motion. I would go with accepting a motion that we will accept the application, but taking out anything about where the funding is coming from, because that's saying we have approved it. So I would like to see a finished application and then us make a decision from that application.
I accept that amendment.
All right. I just want to give a technical clarification. So what we're planning on doing is for the 24 applications that came in, we will make implementation will come out of the money that is in fiscal 20. Next month, we will be voting on our fiscal 21 budget that begins on July 1. And once City Council approves it, now it could be in July, it could be August, I don't know what their schedule with the pandemic is going to be, but once City Council approves our fiscal 21 budget, we have access to fiscal 21 money. So yes, Ralph, we could take it on money that's in old accounts, but we could also take it, if we choose to fund it, from fiscal 21 money. So if everyone understood that. But so right now, though, the motion that we're discussing is to just let them know that we would consider an off-cycle application. We would accept it. All right. Any other comments from the committee? Gloria?
Sorry. This is for Ed. How long were the offices closed down that the person couldn't have gotten in touch with planning or any other office?
We've been open every day. I have been here day and night ever since the City Hall's been closed to the public.
Okay, that's what I thought. It's concerning to me.
Again,
I agree. I agree. I don't see the urgency, and I think accepting this application would just open Pandora's box for any person who wanted to apply after the deadline.
Well, didn't we accept some that came in late?
We accepted some applications that arrived after the 4 p.m. deadline. They still arrived on the 29th, but they arrived by 4, and it was the electronic copies that sort of didn't arrive on time.
That was a de minimis rule, to use a coin of phrase.
But didn't this, for the little houses, didn't she say that that the opportunity to buy the land came up late, or did I not understand that well?
Let me pull that back up for you. All right.
But also, if you go by what they're saying, when you listen to the news, it tells you City Hall is closed, even though it's open.
It's closed.
Oh, no. It's closed.
We can't see the damn letter.
Yeah, you can't read it?
Yeah, but my pictures are in the way. I can't see the whole letter.
I think you can, up at the top, make a, diminish it.
Got it?
Yeah.
It was our hope to have several veterans show intent to purchase several of the homes to help validate the project prior to executing purchase and sale. However, the owner of the land has accepted our offer letter. The offer was for $100,000 and included a lengthy due diligence period and a contingency of receiving grant funding by the fall.
So in other words, if they don't receive grant funding by the fall, I mean, that sounds like it's their deadline is they have a fall deadline on this property.
All right. So unless someone has something else to offer, we will take a vote. Any other comments from committee members? So starting off with Gloria.
I'm going to say no.
Juanita.
I'm going to say yes.
Terry.
I'm going to say yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Lamar.
No.
And Bob, no. So what is that? That is 3 in favor and 3 against, so the motion does not prevail. So we're not accepting an off-cycle application. So the next question is to decide whether we are going to receive this incomplete application, that 1 copy, not 11 copies, no electronic notification, and no cover sheet that ever arrived. I mean, it subsequently arrived. And I think, Karen, is there an email or a cover letter that reflects that you can put up?
Yes, just give me a second. Okay. I think this is it. Yes. Okay. Do you have it?
Yes.
Although it's very small.
All right. Let me see. Is that better?
No.
No?
Oh, there it is. Good.
All right. Do you want me to read it or do you want to? Okay. So this is from Lisa Goodman from Trinity House. And the application, you should have the application. And here's her explanation of why it wasn't complete. I actually was out a bit today with, you know what, this is cabin fever, went for a walk. Okay, our chairman, former Springfield City Commissioner, Mr. George Bruce, who was working really hard, ultimately spearheading the financial collaborations with New Valley Bank President and the Davis Foundation. You know, she has like a mix of personal in here, and I'm just trying to pull out, or do you want me to just read the whole piece, or do you want to read it yourself?
It says George Bruce got COVID-19 in April.
Right.
Underlying health conditions is severe, and he's still recovering.
Right. And she lost both her parents during the process in mid-April. So she's had a difficult time and still did manage to get something in. So I just thought it was worth having you look at it and make a decision after reading her letters that she wrote.
Okay, so if someone would like to make a motion that we have first to discuss, that would be good.
I'll make a motion that we discuss this application.
Well, the motion, Gloria, I would prefer is that the motion is to accept the application even though all parts were not received by the deadline.
I make a motion that we accept this application even though all parts were not received by the deadline.
Second?
I'll second it.
I second it.
So discussion, Ralph?
This kind of sounds like the issue we had last year with First Resource. Is this kind of similar, Bob? Or are we in a different situation?
I'm trying to remember, you know, First Resource somehow, I think, missed the preliminary application. It arrived late. And we ultimately allowed them to submit a full application. So it's somewhat similar, although this one is, I mean, one in the box that came from the park department. Don't know how it got there. Where the park department had 4 applications in a box, there was one single application regarding this particular project. No cover letter with it, no 11 copies, no electronic copy. But at least one copy arrived on time. So it's slightly different than what we had with First Resource last year.
So my question is, when did we receive, you know, the full information? Was it, you know, obviously it wasn't a couple hours later, but was it a week later? Was it 2 months later?
You can see on the application here, it was April 29th.
And when was our deadline?
April 1st.
No, it was April 29th. But
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. It was about a week later. I can find the email, but it was about a week later.
This cover sheet that you're looking at right now, even though it's dated April 29, was not attached to the rest of the application.
That's correct. It was not. And she had difficulty with getting the application. The information she received didn't include this. I don't know. I think she was just in a particular difficult all around time, and this just didn't get the attention it needed until it was too late. So anyway.
Karen, what is the request for? I understand it's 124,000, but what do they want to do with it?
It says here, the Trinity House Women in Crisis and Their Children is an exciting new city initiative that will secure a vulnerable population and positively impact the historic community by adding value through the rehabilitation of 5153 Bay Street. Once rehabbed, the 2-family structure will hold up to 10 adults or 15, including small children. So it's for a women in crisis shelter.
I also think it's not clear, but I think it's a feasibility study. Even though there's a budget for other things, if you look.
Well, but that shouldn't be relevant to whether we accept it or not, though, should it? Whether or not we like it.
No, I'm just answering Gloria's question.
But Ralph's correct. It should be either part of it was here on time and we'll accept the rest, or sorry, submit next year. So are we ready? Unless there's more discussion, we will take a vote. So Gloria, we start with you.
I guess I'm going to go with no again.
Okay, Juanita?
I'm going to go with yes because it was on the day.
Terry?
No.
Ralph?
Yes.
Lamar?
Yes.
And I'm going to go yes. There was something there on the day. So the motion is passed that we will indeed accept it, schedule them for June 2nd. If they can't be here for June 2nd, we ain't having a special meeting for them. So they will be one of the petitioners on June 2nd.
Okay, great. I'll let her know.
Okay. So the last thing before adjournment is just an FYI. the Mason Square apartment project by First Resource has declined our money. And the email, you know, we took our time getting this because it was the most difficult contract. It would be the first time that we had to come up with an affordability restriction, because this is the first time we funded a housing project besides the little first-time home buyer thing. Finally working with, you know, a lot of work done by Karen and a lot of work done by Kathy Breck in the law department, and some input with Bobby DeMusis, who's the deputy over at the housing office. We finally got it, and Kathy emailed it off to First Resource with a cover letter for me that said, just keep in mind, we need the preservation restriction because you got a historic building. We need an affordability restriction on 3 of your 60 units. And we need your certificate of insurance and yada, yada, yada. Anyway, so the email response that came from Gordon Pulsifer was, Kathy, thanks for sending along the CPA grant agreement. Unfortunately, we will be unable to execute this agreement because we closed Mason Square Apartments 2 with the investors and the state last year, and the rent schedule cannot be changed, nor can we commit to perpetuity on 3 apartments. Currently, the project is 90% complete. We were unclear last year whether these funds would become available for this project and what the terms would be until now. It appears also that there will be financial reporting in perpetuity if we were to sign this agreement. In summary, we will be unable to accept CPA funds from the city of Springfield at this time. Perhaps maybe a future project could be discussed as a grantee when identified. So that money, we took about $33,000 from our fiscal 18 housing pot that had been left over, and we took the remainder from our fiscal 19 housing reserve. It will now go back into the housing reserve, and it will sit there until we allocate it to a community housing project, which we may very well be doing in this grant round if we choose. So, you know,
So how much was the total?
Say that again, Ralph?
How much was the total that they did not accept?
I think it was 175.4. So okay. If you remember, they had asked for 250,000. The committee was split between whether people wanted to fund this at all or not fund it, or fund it. And the compromise was, we've got this money sitting in the housing pots. We have no other housing projects. We'll give him what we've got in the housing pots. And when I told him we were recommending it to the city council, which would have been in September, I clearly said in my email, we'll be looking for a historic preservation restriction on your State Street building, and we'll be looking for affordability restrictions. So I'm not sure why it came as a surprise that this is what it was. Juanita, unmute this.
How much was it again?
Say that again?
How much money was it again? I missed it.
175,400, I believe, or 174,500. One of those two.
Okay.
So I will be telling the folks at finance to put the money back into the reserve pot. So that being said, we've come to the end of the agenda. A motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, oh, do I have to do a roll call on that, Eddie? Roll call, Gloria.
Yes.
Juanita.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Lamar.
No, I was hoping to stay till 10.
All right. And Bob, yeah. So thank you, Focus Springfield, once again for a great job. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we will see everyone then at our next, it's a regularly scheduled meeting on June the 2nd, where we will meet with the remaining applicants, which I think is now up to 10 or 9, because we had to move classical. They couldn't meet tonight, make it tonight, and we've now added the new project in.
Okay. We don't have those copies, do we?
Pardon? Someone say something?
I did. Karen, do we have those copies?
Yes.
The new one.
Yeah.
Yes, well, not the hard copies, the paper copies, the digital I sent.
Yeah.
What she had said is that if you are going to accept it, she can make copies if you would like.
Well, we do, and I obviously would want you to be delivering them to the CPC members.
Obviously, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel, for me, I hate reading big documents on the computer. I want paper, and I'm too cheap to print all this stuff out. So I want it delivered.
Okay, I will,
Are we having another Zoom meeting next month?
So I'm assuming that on June 2nd, we will still be Zooming.
Mhm.
And I'm going to have Karen send out a doodle poll to see if we can have a special meeting in mid-June then to actually start the deliberations.
okay.
Karen, don't send me a copy. Don't bring me a copy.
Okay. Anyone
Save you-
else?
Save a trip.
Does anyone else not want a hard copy?
How many pages is it?
I think it was like 25 or something. I can look real quick. Does that make a difference?
All right, I'll print it. You can skip me too.
Okay, all right. Any other takers? No, okay. So I'll print 9 copies then.
Very good. Thanks so much, everyone.
She was gonna print them.
What?
Didn't Bob say?
Thank you.
The applicant needs to print them.
Exactly. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.